My beloved child, don't skip this, pause, breathe, and let your heart lean in, because what I'm about to place before you is urgent, tender, and wrapped in a warning that smells like mercy. There is a presence circling your life right now, a man who wears a smile like sunlight while carrying a shadow tucked under his arm, and heaven has been whispering into your spirit that his closeness is not what it seems, so do not scroll past this moment as if it were nothing, because the gravity of what you miss in a single beat could ripple through your peace for months to come. He arrives like warmth, like a safe harbor after storms, his voice calibrated to soothe the places you keep secret, his questions gentle as if he's trying to stitch a wound, but the threads he holds are laced with intent, and what looks like compassion is actually a map back to your most tender places, your tiredness, your loneliness, your unanswered prayers. Places he studies the way a cartographer studies a coastline, memorizing coves and hidden inlets so he knows exactly where to anchor when the tide is right. Don't dismiss that small, uneasy pulse in your chest when you think of him. That is not paranoia, that is your spirit's alarm bell, and God has been tuning it for you like a faithful watchman, because what you cannot see with the eyes of the world, the heart of heaven sees clearly. This man rehearses concern as an actor rehearses lines, his timing is too perfect, his empathy reads like a script written after hours of watching you, and each compliment, each "I understand," each offer to help is a stone placed carefully in a path designed to lead you somewhere he intends. Listen. He does not move alone, a whisperer nudges him, a voice from the shadows coaches his steps, and together they have plotted a plan that uses your kindness as a threshold and your trust as a key, believing you will never notice the lock sliding into place because they have smoothed every movement with the illusion of love. But heaven is not silent, and that's why you feel those small pulls of discomfort that you tried to explain away, because God stepped in before their strategy could become your story. Imagine for a moment the scene God shows. Him taking notes of your habits, archiving your words like evidence, tracking the beat of your laughter and the length of your silences, searching for cracks he can widen into a door, learning which wounds will bleed easy and which joys he can pretend to celebrate while pilfering your peace. It's not random that he appears most sincere when you are most tired, for manipulators bank on exhaustion. The exact second you lower your barricades, he plans to step forward with a staged rescue, a perfectly placed comfort that will feel like a gift but function as a chain, and heaven says, not today, because your destiny is too precious to be bartered away for a counterfeit affection. You may think you know him. Familiar faces deceive because our souls are wired to trust what looks like family or friendship. Yet God reveals that familiarity can be the camouflage of opportunism, and the more comfortable he seems, the more dangerous his subtle designs become, for he intends not to add to your life but to occupy the room where your future conversations will be held. Do not mistake his proximity for protection. He seeks proximity for possession, asking for tiny things first, small favors that later make returning boundaries feel like abandonment. This is the calculus of those who would use love as leverage, begin with small asks, then escalate to influence, and by the time you realize there was a pattern, he has woven himself into the architecture of your choices, and the cruel craft of his plan is not merely emotional. He wants access to your decisions, to nudge your next steps, to rearrange your priorities under the guise of counsel until the life that should have been yours is shaped by another's appetite. Yet the story does not end with caution alone, because God shows how he intercepts. Right when the man prepares his most convincing performance, a disruption arrives, a delay, a sudden truth revealed, an inconvenient light that makes the mask slip, and what you thought was coincidence is actually mercy in motion, a divine hand rearranging the chessboard so his move fails before it begins. See how this protection works like a spiritual magnet that repels what will harm your progress. Every time he tries to close the distance, something alters his timing. Every time he clears his throat to deliver his rehearsed compassion, circumstances conspire to expose the hollow ring of his words, and when his mask finally cracks, as all masks do when pressure mounts, you will witness the shift. Sweetness curdles into impatience, helpfulness hardens into control, and the warmth you once found comforting will reveal its true color, cold and calculating. At that exact fracture, something inside you that felt like fog will lift, clarity will arrive like morning light, and the confusion that made you question your instincts will dissolve because God not only warns, He frees, and freedom does not come empty-handed. It returns what was stolen from you, peace, clarity, and a restored capacity to trust rightly. Notice, too, that God's warning is not about fear but recalibration, for He intends to clear space in your life for something or someone pure, someone whose presence will not dim your destiny but amplify it, someone whose name will bring calm instead of discord, whose influence will be a blessing rather than a blockade. Imagine doors that once felt shut swinging open, opportunities aligning like dominoes, rest returning to your sleep and a quiet confidence settling into your steps. This is the fruit of divine intervention, the miraculous aftermath of being rescued before your heart was entangled, so do not be ashamed of the doubt that rose in you, do not shame the small voice that said, "Wait," because that whisper was an angel in disguise, guiding you toward a safer shore. Hold your heart soft but guarded, receive help with discernment, and when he grows frantic, when his messages multiply and his apologies become urgent performances, watch closely. Desperation is not love, it is exposure. Keep your boundaries firm and your spirit tuned to prayer, because the one who truly loves you will not try to own you, will not isolate you from those who nourish your soul, and will not celebrate your rise by clutching for its spoils. Above all, remember this. The moment the wrong presence is revealed and removed, your life will not be emptied, it will be cleared, and into that cleared space God will usher someone whose intentions align with your calling, someone who blesses your path rather than burdens it, someone who walks beside your dreams without trying to rewrite them, and that coming will feel like relief made tangible, like a warm wind that carries seeds of joy and purpose straight toward you. So stay close to prayer, listen to the quiet alarms inside you, and thank God for the warning that arrived before the fall, because sometimes salvation looks like a whisper that tells you to step back, and when you obey, you discover the universe rearranged in your favor. My beloved child, don't skip this breath, because what unfolds now dives deeper into the shadows heaven has been trying to pull you away from, shadows shaped not just by a man but by the intentions he has been hiding behind soft words, gentle smiles, and perfectly timed concern, and this is where the truth begins to sharpen into something your spirit has been sensing long before your mind could name it. You've noticed it. The way he lingers in conversations just long enough to map your emotional weather, the way he studies the tone of your sighs, the pauses between your sentences, the shift in your eyes when something hurts, and though he pretends these observations come from a place of care, heaven reveals it is not compassion guiding him, but calculation, a quiet assessment of where your heart bends and where your guard weakens. Listen closely, because this part exposes something deeper. He is not simply watching you, he is mirroring you, reflecting your language, your emotional rhythm, your vulnerabilities back at you so you feel understood, but this mimicry is not connection. It is strategy, a slow weaving of false familiarity designed to pull you into the illusion that you've finally found someone who gets you, someone who speaks your emotional dialect, someone who appears to be on the same wavelength, when in reality he is adjusting himself like a chameleon to fit exactly what he believes you are missing. And this is why heaven stepped forward so fiercely. Not because you are weak, but because your heart is open, empathetic, soft in ways that make you a target for those who know how to use tenderness as a ladder, and this man has been climbing quietly, step by step, smile by smile, waiting for the moment your heart leans just enough for him to slip his motives through the gap. But God says your spirit felt it. That tiny, uncomfortable tightening in your chest when he suddenly knew too much, when he asked a question too precise, when he tried to comfort you in a way that felt rehearsed, like he wasn't responding to you but performing a script he practiced in his mind, and though you brushed it off, heaven didn't. Heaven caught every detail he thought he hid. God shows a scene where he whispers about you to someone else, not the affectionate kind of whisper but the analytical kind, as if discussing a strategy, dissecting your emotions like a blueprint, highlighting your fears like weak spots that could be bypassed, identifying your longing as a doorway he could walk through when the timing was right. He speaks of you like an opportunity, my child, not a blessing, and that is the difference that heaven cannot allow to go unnoticed, because your life is not a stepping stone for someone's ambition, your heart is not a tool for manipulation, and your destiny is not a playground for someone seeking control dressed in affection. Pay attention to how he appears when you're tired, how his messages grow gentler only when your spirit grows heavier, how his concern intensifies only when you're vulnerable. This is no coincidence, it is the rhythm of a manipulator who waits for the emotional night to fall before he approaches with his lantern of false warmth, knowing you will be more willing to accept the light even if it comes from a questionable source. And God says this is the part where the trap becomes visible. He has been positioning himself as the only one who understands you, slowly creating emotional distance between you and the people who truly care for you, subtly planting doubts about their intentions, their loyalty, their value, because once he becomes the center of your emotional world, he gains influence over your decisions, and with influence comes control, and with control comes the ability to reroute your destiny towards something that benefits him more than it blesses you. But heaven did not allow him to finish the blueprint. Even now, God is placing obstacles in his path, divine disruptions that confuse him, delays that frustrate him, shifts that expose the cracks in his performance. He expected you to be more responsive by now, more drawn in, more entangled in his emotional web, yet something keeps pulling you back, something keeps you guarded, something inside you refuses to give him the access he seeks, and that something is divine protection turning your hesitation into a shield. This man doesn't understand why your spirit resists him even when your mind tries to be polite. But God understands, because heaven has been whispering into your intuition, nudging your instincts, tightening the inner alarm each time he gets too close to the private spaces of your heart, and here's where the twist deepens. He is not only studying you, he is practicing emotional timing. Waiting for your lowest moment, your loneliest night, your most overwhelmed day to deliver the perfect gesture, the perfect comfort, the perfect sentence that feels less like love and more like a hook, but heaven intercepted him before he could cast that hook fully into your heart. There is a moment heaven shows. A moment he had planned as his big reveal, the point where he would express a sudden, overwhelming concern or affection designed to corner you emotionally, a declaration meant to pressure you into trusting him, needing him, choosing him, but God disrupted the moment, pulled you away, shifted the circumstances, and what he thought was the perfect timing collapsed under divine interference. He is restless now, confused by the spiritual resistance he cannot see, unaware that angels are blocking his path, preventing his intentions from merging with your destiny, and God says this is not just a warning, this is preparation. Because what comes next will expose him more clearly than ever. Masks crack under pressure, and pressure is coming. Heaven is orchestrating a situation where his true nature slips out, his tone shifts, his impatience flares, his mask crumbles, and you will see the difference between who he pretended to be and who he truly is, not through guesswork but through revelation. Your eyes will open, your discernment will sharpen, and the fog he tried to create around your heart will evaporate like mist under sunlight, and when that moment comes, you will not feel fear. You will feel relief, a deep exhale your soul has been waiting to release, and you will finally understand that God's protection is not always loud, sometimes it is a quiet tightening in your spirit that insists something is off, even when your mind has no evidence. And the moment the wrong energy is exposed, heaven will begin clearing your path, not just of him but of every residue he tried to leave behind, making space for someone real, someone safe, someone aligned with your spirit, someone whose presence does not distort your peace but nourishes it. So stay aware, my child, because this is the chapter where truth begins to lift its veil, and heaven begins to separate what looks good from what is good, for your heart, your future, and your destiny. My beloved child, don't skip this moment, because what unfolds now is the part heaven has been waiting for you to understand, the dimension beneath the surface where the truth becomes too loud for your spirit to ignore, where the intentions of the man circling your life start revealing themselves in ways that leave no room for doubt. And this is where God pulls back the curtain on the emotional trap he has been preparing with such calculated patience. Listen carefully, because this is deeper than behavior. This touches the intention behind the behavior, the strategy behind the kindness, the motive behind the attention, and heaven shows that every gesture he offered, every message he sent, every comforting word he delivered was part of a larger design meant to shape how you think, how you feel, how you respond, slowly guiding your emotions toward a version of reality where he becomes the center, the anchor, the one you instinctively turn to before you turn to anyone else. But here is where the deception tightens. He doesn't want your heart, he wants your dependence. He wants you to rely on him so deeply that the moment he withdraws, you feel unbalanced, confused, needing him to restore the stability he intentionally shook. This is not accidental, it is rehearsed, the psychology of manipulation dressed in the softness of affection, and heaven reveals the hidden pattern you may not have noticed. He appears warm when you're cold, supportive when you're fragile, attentive when you're overwhelmed, filling emotional gaps selectively, not consistently, giving you just enough closeness to feel comforted but never enough clarity to feel secure, keeping you suspended in a state of subtle emotional imbalance where he can remain the solution to a problem he quietly created. And God says the danger is not in what he gives, but in what he withholds with intention, the way he listens just long enough to gather emotional data but never long enough to reveal his own truth, the way he answers your pain with empathy but responds to your questions with vagueness, preserving an air of mystery that compels you to lean in while he keeps his motives concealed. This intentional imbalance is how manipulators maintain influence. By giving you emotional breadcrumbs that create the illusion of connection, while keeping your spirit dependent on their next move, their next gesture, their next reassurance, and heaven shows the moment he realized your soul was soft, your heart deeply sensitive, your loyalty genuine. It was then he deepened his strategy, calibrating his energy to match your needs while disguising his ambition as affection, and God says this is where your intuition began to stir, that quiet discomfort you pushed aside, that strange heaviness after talking to him, that subtle confusion you couldn't explain. You thought you were imagining it, but your spirit was reading his intention long before your mind had evidence. And now heaven reveals what he has been preparing behind the scenes. A moment of emotional entanglement disguised as concern, a moment where he plans to present himself as your savior, your sole comfort, your safest place, using a situation, real or exaggerated, to push you into trusting him more deeply than you trust your own discernment. This moment would have felt sudden, overwhelming, and deeply convincing. The kind of emotional attack that feels like revelation but is actually manipulation. He has been preparing the words, rehearsing the tone, timing the delivery, waiting for the second your heart feels tired enough to surrender without noticing what you're giving up, but heaven intervened long before his timing aligned, creating delays, distractions, misalignments that frustrated him and protected you. He doesn't know why his plan feels off, why you seem harder to reach, why your heart doesn't open the way he expected. But you are not resisting him by chance, your spirit is under divine guard, and the wall he feels is not your stubbornness but God shielding you from a trap your heart was never meant to enter, and here is where heaven gives you a glimpse of the truth behind his persistence. He senses your rising season, he feels the shift in your energy, he sees your glow returning, your strength rebuilding, your destiny unfolding, and instead of celebrating it, he wants a share in it. He wants proximity to your breakthrough not because he cherishes you, but because he desires the benefits attached to your growth. This is why he tries to stay close, why he tries to insert himself into your daily rhythm, why he tries to appear at the exact moments life feels heavy. Because emotional vulnerability is the easiest doorway for those who seek influence rather than intimacy, yet God says his closeness is no longer subtle, his intentions no longer hidden, because heaven has begun exposing him through the very cracks he tried so hard to seal. You may have noticed moments where his mask slipped, a sharp tone, a controlling suggestion, an impatient reaction. Moments that didn't match the softness he tries to maintain, and these moments are not random, they are revelations, fragments of truth breaking through the performance he can no longer sustain under divine pressure. And in the days ahead, heaven shows even more clarity coming your way, conversations where he contradicts himself, gestures that suddenly feel off, words that reveal his entitlement, and signs that disturb your peace in ways you cannot pretend to ignore. God is not exposing him to scare you but to free you, to restore your clarity, to return your inner power, to sharpen your discernment so you can separate emotional manipulation from genuine connection, and when the full truth stands before you, not as suspicion but as revelation, you will notice something extraordinary. The heaviness you carried around him will lift instantly, the confusion will dissolve like dust in sunlight, and your heart will feel lighter in a way you haven't felt in a long time, because heaven is not just revealing the wrong energy, God is extracting it from your path. And what follows this extraction is not emptiness but alignment, a space cleansed for something pure, someone honest, someone spiritually aligned who does not manipulate your vulnerability but protects it, who does not compete with your destiny but supports it, who does not drain your peace but multiplies it. So listen closely, my child. This part is not just a warning, it is preparation, because God is clearing the fog, sharpening your vision, and guiding your spirit into the truth that will free your future from the grip of intentions that were never meant to shape your life. My beloved child, don't skip this breath, because what opens here is the part where heaven begins to expose the architecture of the trap he was quietly constructing around your heart, a structure built not with bricks but with emotions, crafted not with honesty but with manipulation disguised as tenderness, and this is where God turns on a light so bright that even the shadows he hid behind can no longer survive. Listen with your spirit, because this goes deeper than anything revealed before. Deeper than his intentions, deeper than his strategies, straight into the motives he believed you would never see, the motives he wrapped in charm, disguised in concern, softened with perfect words timed at your most vulnerable moments. And God says this man didn't want just a place in your life, he wanted a position, a role, a level of influence that would grant him access to the decisions that shape your destiny, and the way he planned to get there was not through love but through emotional dependence, through subtle fear, through cleverly crafted confusion. He wanted you to believe that others were drifting, that people around you were unreliable, that he was the only one who understood you, creating an emotional vacuum where he becomes the center, the anchor, the safe place, when in truth he was building a cage disguised as comfort. But here is where the trap's true shape finally emerges. He has been preparing to isolate you, not by force, but by suggestion, by planting quiet doubts about others while amplifying his own presence, making his voice louder than your intuition, his opinion more significant than your inner guidance, his approval more valuable than your peace, and heaven reveals how he planned to deepen this trap. By gradually inserting himself into the emotional spaces where you feel most fragile, commenting on your fears as if he alone could cure them, responding to your worries with a level of urgency that feels caring but is actually possessive, making you think he is indispensable, a necessity rather than a choice. This is how manipulators anchor themselves. Not by demanding love, but by creating the illusion that you cannot function without their emotional input, their constant presence, their guidance shaped as support. He knew if he could get you to rely on him during your low moments, he could influence you in your strong ones, subtly guiding your decisions, steering your dreams, adjusting your priorities until your life began bending toward his benefit instead of your destiny. But my beloved child, God saw the danger hidden beneath his sweetness long before his plan reached its climax, long before he delivered the grand gesture he rehearsed, long before he stepped forward as the savior he pretended to be. God saw that this man wasn't drawn to your heart but to your potential, to your light, to your rising season. And he wanted to attach himself to your breakthrough so he could stand in the glow of blessings he never worked for. This is why his presence began to feel heavy, why your spirit felt unsettled even when your mind couldn't explain it, because your spirit was reading the truth heaven had already exposed, that his energy was draining your clarity, lowering your vibration, disrupting your peace each time he stepped closer, and heaven says this heaviness was not random. It was divine alertness waking up inside you, warning you quietly that something about him did not align with the path God has prepared for you. And here's where the twist sharpens. He didn't plan to reveal his intentions gently, he planned to reveal them dramatically, emotionally, with intensity strong enough to override your discernment, forcing you into a state where confusion feels like connection and pressure feels like destiny. He wanted to overwhelm your senses so you wouldn't have space to think, only react, only feel, only fall into the moment he engineered to bind you emotionally. But God interfered. He delayed the conversation, shifted the timing, disrupted the moment, creating spiritual static in the space where the trap was supposed to snap closed. And that is why he has been frustrated, confused, restless. His script is failing, his timing is collapsing, and his influence is slipping. Heaven reveals that he has begun noticing your distance, your clarity returning, your boundaries tightening, and instead of respecting them, he is preparing to intensify his charm, to become even more attentive, even more emotional, even more concerned, because manipulators don't retreat when they lose access. They escalate, they sweeten their tone, soften their words, amplify their affection, all in an attempt to regain the ground God pulled you away from. But my child, God says, do not mistake this sudden sweetness for sincerity. It is desperation, the desperation of someone who senses their influence dissolving, someone who realizes the door they secretly tried to enter is being shut by divine hands, someone who understands that your clarity is becoming their downfall, and heaven is preparing a moment, a single conversation, a single reaction, a single slip, where his mask breaks more violently than before, revealing the impatience, the entitlement, the control that he has been suppressing behind practiced gentleness. And when that moment arrives, you will not feel fear, you will feel confirmation, the final puzzle piece dropping into place, the truth aligning with the intuition you carried but couldn't name. God is not just exposing him, he is detaching him from your spirit, removing the cords of emotional influence he tried to tie around your heart, cutting every thread he hoped would bind your decisions to his desires. And after this exposure, something extraordinary happens. Your energy shifts, your clarity sharpens, the inner fog evaporates, and the part of you that felt numb or confused begins to awaken again. You start feeling lighter, breathing deeper, thinking clearer, because the emotional weight he placed on your heart was never yours to carry. And this cleansing is not an ending, it is preparation for someone whose presence will not confuse but clarify, not restrict but liberate, not drain but uplift, someone whose intentions align with God's design for your destiny. Heaven is not pulling you away from something without reason. God is clearing the path for what was always meant to come toward you, something pure, someone genuine, a connection that won't manipulate your wounds but will honor your heart. Stay close, my beloved child, because this revelation is only the beginning. Heaven is still unveiling, still protecting, still guiding you into the truth that will change the trajectory of your life forever. My beloved child, don't skip this moment, because what unfolds now is where heaven begins revealing the part of the story he never wanted you to see, the part of his plan that was meant to stay hidden until it wrapped around your emotions so tightly you couldn't tell where your feelings ended and his influence began. And this is where God steps in with a clarity so sharp it slices through every illusion he tried to build around your heart. Listen carefully, because this is the layer of truth he worked hardest to conceal. He wasn't only trying to get close to you, he was trying to replace something in your life, someone in your life, a position in your heart he believed belonged to him even though he never earned it, and the way he planned to take that place was not by supporting you, but by slowly discrediting the people who genuinely care for you. Heaven shows the subtle ways he began doing this. The tiny hints he dropped about others not really understanding you, the gentle suggestions that you shouldn't trust everyone, the quiet comments that some people don't value you the way he does, and though these words seemed caring, they were seeds of isolation planted with precision, each one intended to create doubt, to distance you from those who love you, to weaken the bonds that protect you so he could slip into the emotional spaces he had no right to occupy. This is how manipulators operate, not by tearing relationships apart openly, but by shifting your perspective inch by inch until you wake up one day feeling alone, thinking he is the only one who truly sees you, the only one who cares, the only one who remains, and that illusion gives him the control he seeks. But my beloved child, heaven refused to let those seeds root in your spirit, and that's why your relationships resisted his influence, why the distance he tried to create never fully opened, why the people he subtly spoke against kept returning into your life with unexpected warmth and loyalty, because God was blocking his attempts, protecting you from the emotional isolation that would have made his manipulation far more powerful. And now here is the reveal that heaven wants you to understand deeply. He has been testing how much influence he has over you, little by little, observation by observation, pushing just enough to see how you respond, pulling back only when he senses resistance, shaping his behavior around your reactions like a puppeteer studying the movement of strings. He would hint at something, a doubt, a suggestion, a request. And then watch your eyes, your silence, your hesitation, your tone, analyzing whether he had gained more ground or needed to readjust his approach, and every emotional response you gave him became information he stored, not to love you but to navigate you. This was never organic, never spontaneous, never genuine. It was a slow, methodical conditioning, like adjusting the temperature of water degree by degree so you never notice the heat rising until you're submerged too deeply to escape. And heaven says this is where the trap he prepared becomes undeniable. He was waiting, planning, preparing for a specific moment, the moment when your heart feels tired, when your mind feels overwhelmed, when your spirit feels stretched thin. Because that is when emotional defenses are weakest, and that is precisely when he intended to reveal the final piece of his act, a sudden surge of concern, affection, or vulnerability designed to make you open the last part of your heart he doesn't yet have access to. In his imagination, he rehearsed this moment over and over. You overwhelmed, him stepping forward like an answer sent from God, you believing this was divine timing when in reality it was calculated timing, crafted with the intention of binding your future to his influence. But heaven shattered his timing, God disrupted it, shifted your emotional state, changed your circumstances, created spiritual barriers he cannot understand, and now he is frustrated, confused, restless because the moment he depended on is slipping out of his grasp. And here is where heaven exposes something even darker. He didn't just want emotional influence, he wanted directional influence, the ability to shape your choices, to guide your decisions, to influence which opportunities you pursue and which you ignore, to become the unseen architect of your future decisions while you believe it's your intuition leading you. This is why God intervened so urgently. Because the path you are stepping into, the elevation, the blessings, the breakthroughs, cannot afford to be tainted by someone whose intentions do not align with your destiny. He saw your rising season approaching, felt the shift in your spiritual atmosphere, recognized the glow around your life that only arrives when God is preparing someone for a higher level, and instead of supporting it, he sought to attach himself to it, to ride your blessings as if they were his own, to benefit from your elevation without ever contributing to your growth. But heaven says your blessings are not a ladder for anyone else, your breakthroughs are not stepping stones for manipulators, your destiny is not a platform for someone to stand on while dimming your light, and God shows the moment that is coming soon. The moment when his impatience breaks through the softness of his performance, when he rushes a conversation, when his tone slips, when his mask cracks, when the irritation he tried so hard to hide shows itself for the first time, and you realize the difference between affection and ambition, between care and control, between love and strategy, and when that moment arrives, you will feel something inside you snap awake. A clarity that silences every doubt, an inner strength that returns like a storm, a truth that fills every corner of your chest, and the confusion he crafted around your emotions will evaporate instantly. God is not only exposing him, he is disconnecting him, detaching your spirit from the influence he hoped to establish, breaking the emotional cords he tried to tie around your heart, freeing your future from the intentions he had no authority to shape, and this freedom does not come empty. Once the wrong energy leaves, heaven fills the vacant space with peace, alignment, and purpose, preparing the way for someone whose presence feels like protection, not pressure, someone who lifts your spirit instead of clouding it, someone whose intentions reflect God's heart rather than their own strategy. My beloved child, heaven is cleaning your path because the next chapter of your life is too powerful, too blessed, too transformative to be shared with someone whose intentions were never for your growth. Stay with me. God is still unveiling, still clearing, still preparing you for something greater than the trap you just escaped. My beloved child, don't skip this single breath, because what opens now is the moment heaven has been preparing you for. The part where everything he hid, everything he rehearsed, everything he planned in secret begins collapsing under the weight of divine truth, and this is where God reveals not just what he intended to do, but how close you came to falling into a trap designed with precision, delicacy, and emotional intelligence so subtle that even the strongest hearts can be deceived. Listen with every atom of your spirit, because this is the part where understanding becomes protection. He didn't just want influence over your life, he wanted access to your destiny, access to your future, access to the blessings God has been preparing for you. And he believed that if he could become the emotional key to your heart, he could also become the silent author of your next chapters. Heaven shows the truth. He saw your growth beginning, your energy lifting, your strength returning, and instead of celebrating your rise, he feared it. Feared that once you stood fully in your power, his influence would weaken, his control would slip, his opportunity to shape you would disappear, and so he quickened his plan, trying to reach deeper into your emotions before you stepped fully into the version of yourself that cannot be manipulated. But God says you were seconds away from a turning point. A moment where your exhaustion could have mistaken his performance for love, where your loneliness could have mistaken his strategy for guidance, and where your tenderness could have mistaken his attention for destiny. But heaven intervened and pulled you back before the trap snapped shut, and this is where the revelation sharpens. He was preparing to use fear as his final tool, not fear in the obvious sense, but a subtle, emotional fear. The fear of losing him, the fear of disappointing him, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of being alone, because manipulators know that if they can tie fear to affection, they can secure a place in your heart much faster than love alone could ever achieve. But heaven blocked this plan, because the moment fear becomes part of a bond, that bond ceases to be spiritual and becomes a cage. And God refuses to let your soul be caged by someone whose motives do not align with your mission. And now he feels the shift, the spiritual barrier standing between you and him, the silent wall heaven erected around your heart, the sudden clarity in your responses, the unexpected strength in your boundaries, and this scares him more than anything because manipulators cannot function where clarity exists. The fog he relied on is disappearing, the confusion he crafted is dissolving, the emotional weight he placed on you is lifting, and he does not understand why his influence feels weaker each day, but heaven understands, because God is dismantling the emotional strings he tied around your spirit one by one, leaving him powerless over a heart he once believed he could steer with ease. And here's where the divine twist begins to unfold. He is about to face a moment he cannot control, a situation where his true nature leaks through the cracks of his performance, maybe impatience, maybe frustration, maybe an entitled tone he didn't expect to reveal, and in that moment, the softness he used as a mask will fall away, and you will see the truth with such clarity that even your spirit will say, "This was never love. This was never alignment. This was never meant to stay." And heaven says you will not feel heartbreak in this moment, you will feel recognition, you will feel relief, you will feel the sharp click of truth aligning with intuition like puzzle pieces snapping together, and all the heaviness he wrapped around your emotions will fall off your shoulders in a single breath. And once this moment arrives, once his mask fractures and the truth stands in the open, God will begin removing him from your path in ways that feel effortless, ways that feel natural, ways that feel almost mystical, because spiritual disconnection often shows itself in physical distance. His messages may grow less persuasive, his presence may feel less compelling, his charm may feel forced, and every attempt he makes to reclaim influence will sound hollow to your spirit because heaven has already shut the door he hoped to walk through. And then, child of God, comes the most extraordinary shift. Your energy rises so suddenly, so unmistakably, so powerfully that even you will feel the difference. You'll notice you're breathing easier, thinking clearer, sleeping deeper, feeling lighter, not because your life suddenly became perfect, but because the emotional weight of the wrong presence has been lifted from your soul, and in that clarity, in that peace, in that restored balance, God begins whispering a deeper truth. You were never meant to carry him into your future, you were never meant to share your blessings with someone who only sought to benefit from them, you were never meant to tie your purpose to someone who tried to steer it for his own gain. This entire exposure, this entire unraveling, this entire divine interruption was God protecting the future version of you. The you who is about to step into doors, relationships, and opportunities that require spiritual purity, emotional strength, and a heart unentangled by manipulation. And now that you are free, heaven begins preparing the path for someone whose intentions align with God's intentions, someone who meets your heart without strategy, someone who stands with you without needing to control you, someone whose presence adds peace rather than draining it. But that is what comes next. For now, my beloved child, understand this: you are being delivered, protected, and repositioned by divine hands, shielded from a trap your heart was never designed to endure, lifted into clarity your spirit has been yearning for, and guided toward a destiny that no manipulative plan can touch.